My husband, Chris, 32M, and I, 31F, have been married for 4 years and together for 6. When we first got together, we had several long talks about how we both wanted a big family. I wanted to be very upfront that being child-free was not an option, and I said I wanted to have at least 4 kids. Being an only child, I knew how lonely it could be, so I also said I wanted to have them about a year to a year and a half apart so they could grow up close. He always wholeheartedly agreed to this and often made jokes like, whether we have 4 or 6, have as many as you want. It's your call since you pretty much have to do all the work. On our wedding day, before we left the reception for our honeymoon, he whispered, "Can we get out of here and get started on baby number 1?" I loved how excited he seemed. To be clear, I didn't go off my birth control until about 2 months after we were married, and I got pregnant soon after with our first daughter, Joy. Joy was a happy pregnancy, with a long birth, but she was a beautiful, healthy baby. She went through colic, which was trying, but other than that, she was a happy first addition according to me. I noticed Chris became distant during my first pregnancy, but when I asked him about it, he just said he had a lot on his mind being a new father. He said he was still excited, but I felt like something had changed. For some info about our finances, we both work full-time, but I make about $20K more a year than him, and the 5-bedroom house that we live in was a gift from my mom, who was very excited to be a grandma to many. My job is fully remote but still offers maternity leave, and I have a nest egg savings for emergencies. I feel it's important to mention this because I know finances can be a major stress factor when it comes to having kids, but not for me and Chris. When Joy was born perfectly, Chris had 3 months of paternity leave and was home with us for the majority of that time. My mom visited a lot and paid to have cleaners come. There were still a lot of long nights, and it was tough for me to breastfeed, but overall, nothing unexpected. Chris still seemed distant but always helped with Joy. We have an agreed open phone policy, so I did check his phone quite often but didn't find any sign of cheating. He also goes through my phone whenever he wants to. I asked if he found me unattractive while pregnant, and he assured me no, he loves me and he's excited for our family. Fast forward a year, we're sleeping through the night, and I am back to work. I saw my doctor and was cleared to try for bundle of joy number 2, and Chris seemed very enthusiastic at this point. He even downloaded an app to track my fertility cycle so we could make the most of my ovulation times. We had a lot of fun, and he was always very passionate, but after 6 months of trying with no pregnancy, I started to worry. I voiced my concerns, and Chris would brush them off, so I tried to be patient. However, almost 2 years passed, and Joy was growing up by herself. I broke down to my mother crying, and she agreed to come with me to the doctor to get checked out. I was very emotional and scared, but the doctor assured me everything was fine and that I should be able to conceive without any issues. I went to Chris with this knowledge, and he was very upset I went to a fertility specialist. I explained I thought something might have gone wrong during my last pregnancy and was concerned that I might be blocked or infertile somehow. He said, "Why not wait and just let nature take its course?" I replied, "Our little girl is almost 3 and growing up by herself." I reminded him of our plans, and he just nodded and said all we can do is try. I asked if he would see a fertility specialist, and he got angry, saying there's nothing wrong with him and we don't have the money for fertility treatments anyway. This confused me since we do have money. We have my savings and are doing pretty well. When he went to sleep, I decided to go through his phone again and went back through his calendar and call logs. I noticed about 8 months after Joy was born, there was a block day indicating he'd taken off from work, but it was in the middle of the week and I don't remember any sort of special occasion behind why he'd take this random day off. I went through the call logs and found an office number about a week before. When I googled the number, it belonged to the office of a local urologist. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I instantly felt cold all over and then started to panic. I woke him up and confronted him. He just stared at me while I went off and admitted babies were harder than he thought, and he felt like my first pregnancy took forever. I couldn't believe it. I packed my things, Joy and her things, and drove to my mom's house. She was distressed with my sudden appearance and my inability to stop crying. I finally told her yesterday morning what happened, and she's just beside herself. I don't know what to do, but every time I think about how during bedroom intimacy, Chris would talk to me about giving me a baby, and he'd had the vasectomy the entire time. I feel so disgusted and stupid. I can't believe my little girl is going to grow up alone. Chris has been blowing up my phone, but I just keep letting it ring and haven't read any of his texts. Edit. To those saying I coerced my poor husband into agreeing to a big family, that is not true. I was always open and honest about my dreams. I told him it's okay if he wanted different things, and he not only repeatedly agreed and accepted, but he also helped me plan, nest, put together the nursery, and enthusiastically participated in conversations regarding having multiple children around friends and family. He always said we'd have at least 4. That was our number. Him getting a vasectomy behind my back was a complete shock. Also, we've both always agreed to the open phone policy. I never betrayed his trust by going through his phone since I always had his consent to do so, and he has mine. We even have the same phone passcode. I never wanted to be in a relationship where we kept secrets from each other. I know other couples feel differently, but this is another thing he always 100% claimed he agreed with me on. I don't ever recall him doing anything for the post-op healing process, or maybe he hid it well. Update 1. Some of you made comments about my mom gifting my husband and me a house and paying for occasional cleaning services, implying that Chris feels somehow emasculated by this and that I am too financially dependent on my mom. I make very good money, have a sizable savings, and don't need any help. My mom was excited to buy this house for us as a wedding present. My dad passed away when I was young, but he was wealthy and left my mom everything, so she shares his love since I'm her only kid. I make more money than Chris and always have. Yes, his name is on the house, so yeah, I'm going to get screwed over in the divorce. Some of you complained I broke his trust by going through his phone. He goes through my phone too, and we even have the same passcode. Some comments called this agreement between us unhinged, which to me is bizarre. Chris, I thought, was my soulmate, my husband, and best friend. We didn't have secrets, or so I thought. Isn't that the whole point of marriage? To finally have one person in the whole world you can tell everything to? To always be on the same team? Obviously, I was wrong, and as many of you pointed out, that kind of love, trust, and openness doesn't really exist. None of that matters now. Chris and Joy seem fine to me, but in hindsight, there's always been a hesitation on his part. I always thought it was just typical since the short while my dad was alive in my life. I don't really remember him being affectionate or warm. He was nice and played with me sometimes, but I don't remember being held by him very much. I asked Chris many times if everything was okay when I noticed he was distant, and he always said things were great and gave an excuse like he's just tired, work is draining, or it's no big deal. We're in the US, and here, a man can go get a vasectomy at any time. I don't know what Chris told his doctor. For all I know, he took his wedding ring off and gave a sob story or probably just walked in and asked for the procedure, it doesn't matter. I'm really thankful for my mother. She's heartbroken for me, and like many of you, she already knows my marriage is over. There have been a lot of long nights of me crying that she's endured. I'm numb when I'm not crying, and I keep getting this creepy feeling that nothing matters. We're getting a divorce. I finally called Chris, and he sobbed, said he was sorry, and said he might be able to get it reversed. I've read a lot about vasectomies since my last post, and sometimes they can't be reversed. It's always a risk. Again, it doesn't matter, it's not actually about the vasectomy. It's that the person who I thought was the one person in the world that I could trust, that I was on the same page with, literally writing the book together, made this decision without me and kept it from me and then lied for years. I really thought what we had was true love. Now I'm pretty certain that doesn't even exist. Chris has not offered any explanation. He cried, begged for my forgiveness, and said again that he could get it reversed. Even if he can, the rest is irreversible. He never once answered my question. It's really painful to talk to him, so after 3 times of asking and him each time dodging the question and begging for forgiveness, I finally just asked him to please leave the house and told him he'd hear from my lawyer. He texted that he's packed and left, and I haven't heard from him since. He never once asked about Joy. My lawyer says I might wind up paying alimony, but I might be able to get the house since it was a gift from my mother and Chris has never made any financial contribution. To everyone telling me it's going to be okay and that I can still have more children, all of that seems impossible right now. My heart is broken. I've never experienced such sadness, and the only relief is when I'm playing with my daughter. Her happiness is infectious. She is blissfully unaware, having the time of her life at grandma's, but unlike her father, she actually asks, "Where's Dada?" I called work and took a medical leave of absence. I found a therapist. My mom has offered to stay with me for a while, as well as hire a nanny.